So, thank you for staying tuned to the Radio 104.7 FM. I hope you are ready for this very morning for us to dive into conversations that are making headlines in the polity, because that's what we do on the polity here on the seriously authentic radio station, transmitting from the commercial city of Onitsha. My name is Franklin Ebuka, and today promises to be exciting because we have various headlines from different newspapers this very morning that we are going to bring to your notice before we get to look at the conversations that are taking or getting the most attention. Now, listen to that our promo that talked about, giving people the chance for them to air how they feel. And it made me to think about what I witnessed this very morning while coming to work, where, people are detailed to help government to drive its policies or help government to drive its activities. And that same people will turn around, sabotage it, and they will see go back to the streets and in their communities and complain that the government is not doing anything. So if that is the case, so how do we now get people who are going to help government to drive these very policies? Because government policies are to be driven by humans, but if the humans are compromised and cannot deliver, where do we get those people who can help us to deliver this so that we can begin to enjoy those dividends of democracy? And of course, that tells you that on this platform, we always talk about governance and politics, because what we want to see is that we want to see a Nigeria that can become better for every one of us, so that this very morning, if you check the headlines on Punch newspaper, you see a headline that is lamenting about the high cost of rent, where somebody said that in Jos, that for you to even rent 2-bedroom apartment in some places, you pay up to 1.5 million for you to rent that. And I try to compare it with what happens in this our own environment, and then when you go to Abuja, when you go to Lagos, you now see that rent is now beyond the reach of the common man. So this very morning, there are a couple of headlines that are taking so much attention, especially when you talk about the issue of the loggerhead between Pengasin and Dangote refinery. Of course, it's raging. Yesterday, Dangote went to court and secured a court order, but NLC has joined the fray, saying that they might mobilize their people to join this very strike. Then in Imo State, we are expecting President Bola Tinubu to arrive there today, because he has some things to commission in that very state. And there's also a book which was written by the governor of the state, Hope Zodema, which he's going to unveil. Then in Anambra State, yesterday was World Igbo Day. It happened at Alex Ekweme Square. I don't know why it was so silent. I was in Oka yesterday, but I hardly knew that something like that was going on until later in the evening, when we began to see snippets, what the governor of Anambra State said there, and then what Ohanes and Igbo said there. Two of them were demanding for the release of Nnamdi Kanu from the incarceration by the federal government. And then, I don't know if any of you also saw the video that trended yesterday on social media regarding the exploit of Agone Chamber in Achalaoka North local government area of Anambra State, where some people who have been terrorizing the area, who have been living in the forest, they were arrested through the efforts of Agone Chamber. And of course, it was celebrated, saying that kudos to them, that we want to see more of that happening. So we have a lot of things to discuss this very morning. Then from the world of sports, Nigeria is back on the calculator board, because FIFA has finally deducted 3 points from South Africa because they fielded ineligible player in their match against Lesotho. So they have forfeited 3 points, and now South Africa has gone down to 14 points alongside Benin Republic, and Nigeria has 11. So we are now pointing calculators the chances of Nigeria qualifying on the straight qualifying series. So lots of more we have on today's conversation. My name is Franklin Ebuka once more. Good morning, and good morning, Chisom Chinedo.
Good morning, Franklin. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Franklin. A lot of things actually happening, and I think it's pretty much part of life. I mean, for every second, every minute, a new development, updates, and our duty here is to make sense of all of these happenings as they break, and also keep you updated as they develop. Yesterday, we talked extensively about the war between Pengasan and Dangote, and of course, the federal government weighing in. We understand there's been a deadlocked, what I call a negotiation meeting, and so presently, there is no concrete resolution on ground. But the industrial court has given Pengasan an order to not stop the supply of crude to Dangote refinery. In the coming days, we look forward to a resolution. But also, Thursday is supposed to be the day that the police starts to seriously enforce the idea of people having permits for their tinted vehicles. And we also understand that this is international best practice. People don't just move around with tinted vehicles in some parts of the world. And I'm hoping that Nigerians are going to pay heed and do the needful and not keep 500 and 1,000 naira in their pigeonholes waiting to bribe police officers who try to do their duty. You can't keep putting them in situations where you have to bribe your way out, or you can bribe your way out and accuse them of bribery. I mean, they are not right, neither are you right.
Okay, so Tony, how right are you this very morning?
Good morning, Franklin. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, the good people of Southeast. Good morning, the Anambra. Good morning, in Onitsha, do wherever you are listening to us from. It's always a pleasure to be here. And we say good morning to God Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, for his mercies, for making everything possible. And we are seeing things very, very well from different angles, and it is marvelous in our eyes. There is no doubt, and we are here to do justice to most things we do say here, and at the same time most things we look at. It's a pleasure being here.
Okay, so let's begin with two things. One is going to happen today. One happened yesterday. The World Igbo Day that happened yesterday in Anambra State, and Ohanes one governor of Anambra State, they reiterated the calls for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, saying that it's going to go a long way in helping them in addressing insecurity in the southeast. Then today, we're going to see the inauguration of another batch of graduates from 1U2 skills of the government of Anambra State. So of course we're going to see the reign of millions this time around, if not in billions, because that was the case in the first instance. While coming to what is very morning, of course I saw some people who were already dressed and moving to work out for this very event. So let's talk about these very two things before we talk about the breakthrough out of the chamber made in insecurity regarding the forest in Nachala.
I think first and foremost, the World Igbo Day celebration, and when we talk about the World Igbo Day celebration, is a day Ndi Igbo world over come together and discuss about their common destiny and their common future. And we saw that yesterday, and it happened at Dr. Alex Ekweme Square Orca, and we saw prominent Igbo personalities home and abroad converging together. But some will tell you, saying Sahanese Ndibo, they are involved and being part of what was actually going on. That's the way people view that organization. So for me, it's a day that we go into introspection. So it happened where questions were asked, issue of Igbo nationhood, these things were raised, and these things were discussed by, I think, speeches were rendered by so many personalities. But in all of this, one thing came up top, and that was the issue of Nnamdi Kanu, release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And we know that it is a necessity, there's no doubt. It is a big necessity. And remember, this issue of World Igbo Day is observed globally. And for those who are outside the country, they have a place, different people in different countries, they have a common place where they come together to look at it. And just like I said, why things like this are going on, issue of language preservation, cultural heritage, unity and pride, history and legacy, some of these things are looked at. But what came out top during yesterday World Igbo Day celebration was the issue of release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Remember, he was abducted sometime around June 2021, and since then he had been under the DSS custody. So it is important that we also look at issues the way they are. First and foremost, before now, it happened under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, and we saw the roles played by different personalities, different government officials, and different government functionaries, and how these things were done, and the court cases involved, how it got to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court maintained that he has a case to answer, but before it got to Supreme Court, Appeal Court had unconditionally released and acquitted him of all the charges preferred against him, even when the charges were about 17 or 14 or before it was brought down to 7 under Justice Binta Nyako. Now it is before the Honorable Justice Omotosho. So we have seen all this, and the question is, where are we today? And look at the matter of insecurity in our lands. That insecurity in our lands has bad development. We know very well that where we are today is not where we are supposed to be, economic wise, political wise, social wise. We have gone miles backward as a result of this festering insecurity. And first and foremost, there are those who hold this opinion that what actually happened to Nnamdi Kanu, that he caused it himself, and there are those that have drawn comparisons, saying that we've seen likes of Sunday Igboho, we've seen other nationalities, ethnic nationalities, we've seen bandits, terrorists being negotiated with by the government in those areas. But in our own climb here, that the person who has raised German questions about nationhood and how Igbos are treated, the way and manner is being hunted and then put to custody. But the issue is, I have always said this, we fought civil war, and for the fact that we fought civil war, and in that civil war we were defeated, let's accept it. And we've seen all over the countries, but it wasn't so in the case of the United States, because when the southern states fought the northern states over the issue of slavery, there was practical reintegration of southern states into the mainstream of United States of America's politics. And that is more reason today for a president to emerge from United States of America is not a case where the president is from the north or where the president is from the south. The south were defeated in United States of America in that their war. They were roundly defeated. And remember that war itself also culminated in the death of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln became American president in the year 1860. He first finished his first term, I think, in 1865. He was killed because he was the one that ensured that America did not divide. When the southern part of the country, we are calling for division, we are calling for separation, for the fact that the manifest destiny under the late President James, which he had entrenched in the United States of America psychology. We are talking about if the issue of slavery will get into the new territories acquired, Arizona, New Mexico, California, these territories acquired from Mexico. But we saw how the Republican Party came to be. And remember, Abraham Lincoln was the first president under the Republican Party in 1860. So the point I'm trying to make here is that they were quick to reintegrate the southern part into United States of America politics. But here in Nigeria, it has not happened. Since our defeat, we have been excluded, we have been ostracized. But on our own part, we have not also played the right policy. We have not demonstrated that things, let the bygones be bygones, let what happened be what happened. We have not demonstrated that. But we've seen the politics of division, tribalism, religion, sentiment, and all of that. But many of us may not be happy with the methodology of Nnamdi Kanu. Particularly, we have to be honest. Yes, there were germane issues he raised, but the way and money went about it, many of us may not agree with that.
All right,
Tony, when you were speaking about insecurity, I almost forgot, we almost forgot to mention what happened yesterday in Abuja, speaking about the death of Christabel Sunto Chukwu Maduagu. She's a broadcaster like us, and she was killed in a robbery attack yesterday in Abuja. And when I saw that news, the young woman, 29 years old, her life cut short just like that, it kind of reminded me of the uncertainty that we all live in as Nigerians and probably as humans, because people die in different parts of the world. There is insecurity in different parts of the world. But as a sovereign nation, we should do our best to rid our nation of elements that perpetuate this kind of evil. I'm also wondering, Franklin, if you saw that news of 2 kids who were caught in Enugu trying to steal their neighbor's baby. According to the report, one is 10, one is 17. And they were trying to steal their neighbor's baby, saying that one brother promised to give them 50,000 naira if they could steal the baby.
Should I say Agakone Garakibe? Because also this very morning, it's also in the news that a guard abducted 2 years son of his master. So Kezebe Madden already free, because the thing is, I keep on wondering why such kind of vicious mind has permitted everywhere, whereby whether old or young, everybody is thinking about how to
get rich quick.
That's what everybody's thinking about now. I don't know how we ended up at this level where we're operating now, because it's quite concerning. It's quite appalling that in this our time, nobody has a regard for life anymore. Because I can remember that in the old Igbo war, so to say, Obala Nasoi, right? Obala Nasoi, to the point that if you are fighting with anybody and you mistakenly kill the person, you got boss such. It happens that very way. But this time around, people can easily snuff out life out of the other. People can easily kidnap people, kill, cut off some part without Akoya Mansoya.
You know, this is September. Today is the last day of September. And once we enter the Ember months, it looks like some persons are on a prowl. They are trying to achieve everything in a space of 3 months. But I also think that what this concern has raised, or the concern this development has raised, is the fact that we're not even safe with children. 10 years, 17 years, negotiating for 50. Can you all get you 50,000 naira with me? Because growing up, you don't even bring anything home that your parents didn't buy for you. So what exactly is he going to do with 50,000? Does he even have parents that question how things came about, how he's spending all of that money? And parents should please beware. This is not a time to keep your child in the care of your young neighbor. Your young neighbor may not be as young anymore. I mean, a 10-year-old child negotiating to hand a baby over for 50,000. Yes, he was aided by a 17-year-old, but a 17-year-old is still a freaking minor. I mean, it's really scary. And parents who've got young children, please be very careful. I also saw a report that a woman attempted to steal a 2-year-old child in Oba here on Saturday, and she was also promised 50,000 naira to get a 2-year-old girl child.
I think I'm really bothered with so many negative news. And I keep asking, when do we cheer up in this country? When do we start having this good news?
When we watch
I don't know, but we have the good news in our own Bible. Sometimes we proclaim it, but here it has been negative news. And some people will say that, Tony, all you do is to try to bring down the country. But when you see things that happen and you decide not to say them, or you decide to play ostrich because of either your political alignment, does that make you a better person? That's the question. I'm really concerned. I'm saying this because we know very well that there is no country in the world where incidents of this nature do not happen. We saw what happened in the United States of America. We saw how Charlie Kirk was killed, was murdered over his preaching, over his conservative view about American system, and we saw how it happened. And we've also seen night attacks and different gun attacks in different parts of the country or in parts of the world, and they go on and then mourn about these things. So when we mourn, we should be allowed to mourn too, because these countries where some of these things happen, they go on and grieve over it and mourn over it. But I'm so much particular about the death of Somtochukwu Christabel. I think she's well known as Somi, the way Chisom is known as Somi. I think both of them are namesake.
No, Chisom, I am Chisom.
No, both of them, you are called Somi. Are you not called Somi? And she's also called Somi. But the point I'm trying to make here is, this young lady, she's schooled in the United Kingdom. She studied law, and she just only came down to this country to do her service. And upon doing her service, she started working as a lawyer, because that's what she studied before she transitioned into full-fledged broadcasts or broadcasting as well. So I think she was killed, murdered. A bright young woman, 29 years. It is a very disturbing incident. And one would also say, because it's just, I don't know whether to label it an isolated incident, but it is under the FCT Minister, Mr. President, to see how they can bring security to this country. especially in Abuja. We were told that her home was robbed. She was killed during an armed robbery at a residence in Katambe. So I don't know how these robbers got into her home, attacked her, but she didn't survive the attack. She has been, while I'm so much particular about her own case, that she was a broadcaster, a fine broadcaster for that matter. She worked with Arise Television, and we've seen her, the way she was so passionate, insightful, engaging in when she performs her duties. So that's the person we are going to miss as a result of charlatans, the so-called armed robbers. I know they will never find peace, but we must do everything possible to improve security. I don't know why we will not have CCTV camera. Charlie Kaik died, and we saw how the CCTV camera captured the moment the young man went on top of the roof and even fired the gun. But now, can anybody bring any CCTV camera on how some Tochugu Christopher was murdered? Nobody. Can we have such kind of smart city in Abuja, especially with CCTV camera flooded everywhere? Under Jonathan administration, it was part of the project. The politicians and contractors ate the money. They ate the money because CCTV camera was to cover major parts of Abuja. I don't know if Katame will be part of the delineated area at that time, but the money never saw the light of the day. It ended up in a private pocket, and to date there is no major CCTV cameras on major roads. It's a disturbing scenario.
So I found out that the late broadcaster was from Agolo in Anambra State. His father is from Agolo and then mother from Delta State, and that was how her life was cut short just at 29 when she was about to turn 30. That's quite sad. That tells you that insecurity is ravaging everywhere, and people don't talk about it because they want to talk about bad news. Rather, it's because people are concerned that they can't go to bed and sleep with their two eyes closed. They can't go home and rest because of insecurity. Just like talked about the one that happened at Achala, the criminals who were busted in Achala. I think about 5 of them,
very young people, 17 years,
young
18
people
years,
who chose to live in the forest, and they have amassed different kinds of arms,
See,
terrorizing people, kidnapping, taking vehicles, and they even have somebody who is stationed to buy every vehicle that they steal.
Franklin, the truth remains, we must appreciate the Operation Udogashi. We must appreciate it. Remember, we have, over the time here, we have been so harsh on them over their inhuman treatment to commuters and the rascality they usually display while on different roads. We have been so harsh on them when it comes to that, and rightly so, and it's justifiable. But when they do the one which is good, we must also appreciate them in the same tone. So we must say kudos to Udogachi for the work they did yesterday in Achala. But my concern, the outline there is the fact that the people arrested, about 4 of them or 5 of them, I don't think that one they call it. There's a name. There's this nickname.
This one they call Small.
Small. Look at that boy called Small. Very handsome boy. I don't know whether to call him man, because for me he's not up to man. Very handsome boy. Very tall. This guy can as well do good doing modeling. Very tall. From Ebonyi State, according to him. But the bad news about it is that I don't know how these boys ended up into what they ended up into. It's very sad. Where have we failed? We have failed as a society. We have failed as parents. We have failed as a people. We have failed everywhere. These are boys. If these boys were to be in UK, I don't know. I don't know if robbery is in their DNA, but if they were to be in UK, I don't know if they will be doing what they're doing here.
You think the system exposed them?
I don't know. I'm just trying to be objective. How can these young boys leave home and decide to be living in the bush? You leave everything good about home All you care is to live in the bush with all manner of sophisticated weapons. Charms. Who taught them how to even do charms? Who taught them that these charms work? I keep asking, if you were in UK, do they do charms there? Can somebody prepare charms, put charms on his waist, put charms on his everywhere on his body? I don't know. Probably the system is expose them, and this, I don't know, this preaching, this ideology that things like this work. But look at how their lives will be cut short. God have mercy upon them. And they have done so many grievous things, kidnapping people, dismantling vehicles in different bushes around Ashala.
You see, these boys will load me, because you just imagine, maybe somebody gets a new vehicle, and the vehicle is stolen, and they call on the buyer. The buyer comes, dismantle the vehicle, and sell it as scrap.
At that point, they don't even take the vehicle anywhere, because sometimes some people, their vehicle will be missing. They will be thinking that by virtue of luck, that they may intercept those who may have stolen the vehicle at Mbuka Obosi, or possibly two major roads. But these days, you know what they do? If they steal these vehicles, they will go into one nearby bush, dismantle the vehicle. The fact, those that will buy the parts will come to that bush and pick the parts as scraps. That is the kind of country we are in.
You see these scavengers. Until when we become serious with them and we look into it, we'll be able to identify the number of robbers who are using that as a business. There are so many robbers, so many criminals who are using that as a business.
If you are calling
that's not business.
Scavengers, let's call them by the name they go. Iron condemn. That's the people you mean. Iron condemn. That's the people you are saying that many of them, they may be into some of these things we are talking about, but not all of them. Because they know every bush. They know every corner where there is iron that is condemned. I don't know. But the point remains that, just like I said earlier on, we must say good work, Ujogashi, but at the same time, you have to be mindful of your relationship with the public. You must also improve on that. We want Anambra State a secure Anambra State, there's no doubt. But we'll keep hammering on that.
All right, so these are just the teasers. We're going to get to the headlines now, so that we'll take the big story this very morning.
You're listening to the Polity. Get involved now.
Okay, so you're listening to the Polity on Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Just to let you know that we are live on our Facebook page, Udala Radio 104.7 FM, and on Instagram and on our YouTube channels, Udala Radio. Get involved on this very conversation. So we have 4 newspapers: Tribune, Vanguard, Punch, and Guardian newspapers. And we'll begin with Tribune newspaper. We have the big story. It says Dangote versus Pengasson. NLC joins phrase set for nationwide action. The story is on page 4. You can see the rider, court starts Pengasson, others from cutting gas supply to Dangote refinery as FG meets disputing parties. Another story says FG makes thesis submission mandatory for NYC mobilization. It's on page 3. I think that was captured on papers yesterday. British diplomat dismisses reports of genocide against Christians in Nigeria as false. Page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. CVR figures hit 6.2 million as Borno State displaces Osun. The story is on page 6. Oyo iced 100 billion naira IGR as Makinde's reforms boost economy, education, and healthcare. The story is on page 27. CBN OAGF deny pleasing, or rather CBN OAGF deny releasing withheld funds to APC chairman, councillors as court restrains UBA from paying out Osun LG allocation. Is on page 3. ASU issues 14 days strike notice over unresolved issues. Is on page 6. Court declares Pat Otomi's shadow government illegal. Check page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. Above the nameplate, FG unveils program to deliver clean off-grid electricity to over 17.5 million Nigerians. It has riders, cancels Independence Day parade, president to speak to Nigerians on October 1st. And the last story here says presidency welcome Jonathan to 2027 race. Says Nigerians won't forget his failures. The story is on page 30.
Quite an interesting development there. All of this back and forth about Jonathan being on the ballot. when I saw that statement today, I was like, finally, they insult Jonathan over this entire thing. But then let's get to the Vanguard newspaper.
Sorry, but it appears as if he's enjoying, the speculation, because in the midst of all these things, his brother has been speaking, people close to him have been speaking, but he has chosen to keep mute about it.
He wants to know who his friends truly are.
Let them talk until the right time, maybe when he's going to say whether he's going to run or not. But it's not unprecedented, because last election too, there were speculations. He kept quiet until 11th hour when he spoke and said, I have no interest.
Okay. The Vanguard newspaper, Tinubu governors APC bigwigs, others storm Imo today to unveil Uzodima's book. The story is on page 11. 2027 presidency, no automatic ticket for Jonathan in PDP. That's from Benga Hashim Group on page 14. Court stops Bengas and others from cutting gas supply to Dangote refinery. The riders, we are not aware of any court order Pengasin. Barricades and MPCL towers, NMDPRA and UPRC. A strike begins on page 5. And the rest here. Presidency to Jonathan. Nigerians won't forget your dismal record in office. That's on page 40. I also thought that the presidency and Jonathan were having some kind of romance, Jonathan's wife saying they are supporting President Tinubu. I honestly don't get it. But the other story here is an advertorial from His Excellency Abdulaziz Yari, Senator for Zamfara West, congratulating President Tinubu and, of course, the nation as she turns 65 tomorrow.
So, may I ask, what is Abdulaziz Yari looking for from presidency? Because this is not the very first time he's putting up this kind of advertorial, and we know in our client that once we begin to see this kind of advertorial, there is somebody is pushing, trying to impress on the presidency so that he can get his way. Because Yari was not in the contest for the Senate president. At the end of the day, we know how this whole thing happened. So let's go over to Gather newspaper and see the banner headline. Gas users groan as Pengasin strike crashes power generation export. The story is on page 6. There are plenty riders there you can check out. Then Borno overtakes Oshun as voter registration hits 6.2 million. The story is on page 30. Bandits sack thousands in Castina as Hurewa forward peace deals. The story is on page 30. The same Katsina State where they had a meeting with bandits and said they were able to reach a truce. The bandits are still killing. And then, below the nameplate, North gets bulk of 330 billion social support, says Tinubu. The story is on page 3. FG cancels Independence Parade, insists Nigeria still work in progress. The story is on page 3. There was no explanation to the reason it was cancelled. FG denies releasing Osun local government allocation as court stops disbursement. The story is on page 5. ASU issues FG 14-day ultimatum over 7-point demand. The story is on page 7. Agreement of 2019, not 2019, 2009 is still lingering many years after. Court declares part autonomy shadow government unlawful. Debate over ethnicity competence deepens as INEC succession battle begins. These are the headlines on the Guardian newspaper.
From the Guardian, we are proceeding to the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper, yes. The banner headline here is Dangote versus Pengasin. NLC mobilizes workers for strike against refinery on page 33. Labour places affiliates on alert as Pengasin shut down NNPCL, NUPRC, NMTPRA offices on page 33. Church members avoided me over Muslim ticket. That's from Remi Tinubu on page 40. 2027 woeful record will haunt Jonathan, says presidency on page 40. Nigeria at 65 FG cancels Independence Day parade on page 2. NNPC Dangote refinery signed fresh 2-year crude deal on page 34. Court stops bank from releasing Osun local government allocations on page 41. Lagos guard faces trial for kidnapping employer's son on pages 4 and 5. And on page 34, tax reforms exempt food, education, agric, FIRS.
All right, so these are the stories we have on the front page of the newspaper. So when we're going to go to the big story now, so that we quickly get into our analysis, don't forget we're live on our Facebook page, Udala Radio 104.7 FM. If you have a comment on any of these very conversations or any development in our program this very morning, you can quickly dash to that very page, drop it. Don't forget you can as well share the video and then like that very page. That's quite good from you. So Tony, yesterday we saw that the industrial court has come in because the Dangote refinery decided to go to court to stop Pengassin and others from stopping gas supply to its refinery, because as of yesterday we knew that gas supply to the Dangote refinery and the fertilizer plants were stopped. But now industrial court has waded in, saying that this very court order is going to elapse after 7 days. But the court looked at the prayers or the application made by Dangote refinery through its council and saw merit in it, because it's going to cause irreparable damage if nothing is done, because Dangote filed application on ex parte, and now here we are. If that Pengassin and others are going to respect the court order, it's a different kettle of fish. But what do you make of the way Dangote refinery has gone about this by going to court to get a court order? Do you see it as trying to use the back door to twist and then cripple Pengassin?
We've seen this before. Probably we do not learn from history, and when you don't learn from history, things like these are bound to happen. And for those who listen to my analysis, you have to pay very serious attention. Yes, there had been interventions by the government of the day, and recall, from what we know, yes, from what we know, we start from what we know and get to what is being alleged and claims being made by parties involved. On this issue, we know very well that Dangote and Pengassin, they have been running a battle. But we understand the battle that they are just trying to protect their interests. But we are so much concerned. I'm concerned about somebody who protects the interest of the generality of Nigerians. That's where my concern is. That's why I've always supported the idea that petroleum products be delivered straight to different filling stations, because in so doing it will bring down the price. And when Pengassin and Nupeng rose against it, I supported Dangote. For me, to that extent, it is right. Just like I said yesterday, when you wake up and sack 800 workers because they joined union, it is not right. Yes, Dangote has given us what we never had, or even if we have had it, it had never went well for us. We have 4 moribund refineries. We are $2.6 billion. We are sunk in turnaround maintenance, and at the end of the day, nothing came out of it. Dangote, for the records, has the biggest refineries in the world, not just in Africa, in the world. Dangote refinery can feed the entire West African and even the entire Africa if care is not taken. 650 barrel capacity per day, that's the production capacity, and we are told that over $220 billion, that's investment, capitalization of that very refinery. So it's a massive investment. I think it is the only loan investment of such magnitude in this country. So we understand these dynamics. Yes, he has given us what nobody has given us. He has brought succor. He has also helped us to save a lot of foreign reserves. Before now, we use our foreign reserve to import these products. And there are those who never wanted his refinery to succeed, so that they will go back to the practice of bringing in these products. They will keep on bringing in these products. And they're making subsidy claim. There is no subsidy. NNPC tells you it is under recovery. They are the sole importer, the sole distributor, and there are a lot of discrepancies we've seen so far in that very sector. Dangote has changed the narratives, and for many who had been into this business, is no more business as usual. We understand that. Having established this once we have laws, and just like I mentioned yesterday, we have the Trade Union Act, Cap T14, laws of the Federation, 2004. I know that law was also amended in 2005, and it has also gone other amendments. But that law allows for unionization. Even Section 40 of the Constitution says freedom of what? Association. For the fact that these workers got into a union and you came out to say that you are reorganizing and you allege sabotage and you lay off 800 of them, for crying out loud, our laws do not support that. Because if this matter comes before the industrial court, if it can be proven that that reorganization or internal sabotage or the sack is linked to their unionization, no court will smile over it. It's against our laws. And I am not this type of person that will, because of the gains I'm making from something, and disregard the law, the existing law, or bring in sentiments. And just like yesterday when I was making this analysis, I also listed out quite a number of companies. Yes, Dangote may have larger capitalization when compared to these companies, and I mentioned them. If we have Guinness, we have all manner of breweries here. You think they don't have association? And many of them are foreign, many of them are local. Many of them, even in oil and gas industry, we have Chevron, we have ExxonMobil, we have Seplat, we have so many of them. But these workers in these companies, they are in fact into different unions, and they respect that. Or do we treat Dangote as a sacred cow, that very baby that cannot be touched when it comes to the issue of law? When it comes to him, we close our law books, and when it comes to others, we open our law books. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of... See, you have to stand tall at the objective, even when it doesn't favor you.
Tony, let me come in here because if you look at because even NLC that has come into the fray now, NLC is trying to cite Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution, as well as Section 87, and I think either 98 or 93 of International Labour Organization conventions. And if you look at these very conventions, what are they talking about? They are saying that this very convention ensures the freedom to form and to join unions, and it is not specific on the union you are going to join. Take for instance, there could be a union within the Dangote refinery structure that as workers you are free to join. Take for instance, we have Nigeria Union of Journalists, which we as practitioners we might wish to join or not to join. I mean, you are free to choose to join or not to join. NUJ will not force you to join NUJ. The only thing they can deny you is that if you have an issue that they will have come in, for the fact you're not a member, they won't come in.
That's it. It's
now,
everywhere.
I have also seen some companies where at the point of your employment, in your employment letter, it is stated that why in the course of this very service, you're not permitted to join any union, except anyone domiciled in that organization. And then, for some people who are concerned, they might turn down the job offer because of that. But some who are not concerned, they might take up the job and saying that they are going to abide by what is contained in that very employment terms and condition, and you choose to work. What I'm just saying now is not to justify what Dangote has done, because if a worker chooses to join a union, it's within the worker's right to do that. But I also want us to look at the bigger picture, because each time we're looking at this Dangote Pengasem thing, it appears as if Pengasem is telling us that Dangote want to monopolize everything. They want to sack the workers. We are trying to protect the interests of the workers. But if you look deep down, you will see that the fight is not about the interest of the workers who are working in Dangote refinery. Rather, Pengasem is working against any force that is going to neutralize its power to hold Nigeria at a hostage. What am I saying so? You know that Dangote refinery now was not in existence about many years ago. And now we have the refinery which its presence is going to bring a whole dynamics in the way the oil downstream is managed. Now, what that simply means is that if they might decide to go on strike while Dangote refinery is working and supplying gas and diesel and petrol, In that very case, they might not have that bargaining chip to hold the government at a jugular. So they are thinking that if these guys leave this very union, their power to hold government to jugular has been neutralized to some extent. So for now, it could be our time to fight and ensure that we maintain that powerfulness in this very sector. Now, if you begin to look at the trajectory of Pengassin, can we take time to look at the role that Pengassin played